Hi, thank you for joining me. Today's topic and discussion is why the American school system uses Spanish class to spy on the Mexican people. So this is interesting, okay? And again, on this channel, we try to use a lot of facts to have a logical way of thinking, and this logic concludes us to possibly different truths that are out there, alternative truths, I guess you could say. And the American government has a way of being sneaky. Black people, we know this. Natives probably know this, and Mexicans probably know this. I mean, everybody probably knows this, that the American government use creative ways to be sneaky and to pick up information about people and to invade people's privacies. And Spanish class is no different. So and this goes, how I got to this conclusion is you got to use history, you got to use facts, okay? We know that it is fact that Mexico was at one point the country Mexico. If you look at current Mexico today, it's that land, and it was also from California to Texas. We know this, okay? Now, because of various wars, the American-Mexican War, the Mexican-French War, we know that Mexico had to surrender the land from Texas all the way to California. We know this. Okay. Now, these countries, these governments, one day is, I'll say this, 100 years in government and history and, totality of things, 100 years is like a day, okay? So even though the Mexican War, the French-Mexican War was, 200 years ago, that's basically like 2 days ago. So imagine you or somebody, they run and slap the shit out of somebody. I mean, you just really slap the shit out of somebody. All right. 2 days later, you might be kind of eerie that this motherfucker might come back and slap the shit out of you. Right? And so that's where we are. That's why we have this conclusion that helps make up the conclusion that the American government used Spanish class as a way to make every American citizen an informant on what Mexico is doing. Because if you teach your whole country, right? If you teach your whole country the language of another country, let's say, you teach the American society, school system teaches their whole citizenship, their whole country, their whole people. They teach them Mexican. They teach them Spanish. I'm sorry. They teach them Spanish, which, let's say, America oppresses Mexico. So now you have the oppressor learning the language of the oppressed. Now, because the American oppressor can speak the language, or at least not even speak it, they can understand it, because comprehension is probably more powerful than speaking, because the the American power structure can comprehend what Mexico is doing. They can comprehend Mexican thoughts. They can comprehend everything that they're doing. They can keep them oppressed. Okay? So and how America was very strategic on how to keep their power above Mexico. They were very strategic. They were very see. America doesn't have a problem with Canada because Canada was ran by France. A lot of Canadians know French, and if you know American history, then you know that French aided America in basically everything it fucking did. I mean, France and America are best motherfucking friends. That's why New York City is the biggest city in America. That's supposed to be a French honor. That's supposed to be like a French homage. That's supposed to be a new French town. York, London, New York. That's so boom. So America doesn't have a problem with Canada. That's why they don't teach France in American school structures. Because they're like, we'll give France their space. They're our allies. We trust them. But Mexico, we have a history of going to war against Mexico. The American power structure have a history, and it's like I said, right? 100 years in a government or 100 years of world history and all this, 100 years is a day. So if you look at history, you look at the Mexican War and you look at the French-Mexican War, those happened in like the 1800s. Those are 200 years ago, almost 300 years ago. So that's basically like 3 days ago. So imagine America slapping and beating the shit out of Mexico 3 days ago. Yeah, they're pretty eerie about what Mexico might do coming back, especially because white America is a dying breed. White people, they're like a dying breed. They can't actually live on this earth. Like they literally can't live on this earth. Like yes, white people are here today, but I'm talking about in the long haul. If you do a race from start to finish of everything world history and human history, white people will be the first people to not fucking make it. And the only reason that they keep making it is by killing other people and taking resources and such and such. So I kind of lost myself. So America doesn't have a problem with France. They don't have a problem with Canada. But they will invade the psyche of Mexicans. They will invade the psyche of Mexicans because they're afraid that Mexico might revolt and try to beat the shit out of America. So how America can be proactive in defending themselves and be proactive and being offensive to Mexico is they teach the American schools, they do the American school system, they teach the American people Spanish so that the American person, the American citizen can be an informant. The American citizen can pick up, the American citizen can go to a Mexican community, right? And they can comprehend what Mexicans are saying. It's probably 5 out of 10, 6 out of 10, 7 out of 10 Americans know how to speak Spanish or they can comprehend it. So because they can comprehend what Mexicans are saying, Mexicans are getting their privacy invaded through the American school system. That's diabolical, man. America is diabolical. You got to understand this. You got to understand how strategic. I'm sorry, I have such a bad time with that word. You got to understand how strategic and how military-minded the American government is a military. Is a military-minded. You got to understand this about. You got to understand this country. They're very militant-minded. They think and they control their people through military tactics, through ways of domination, not peaceful and working with people, but through ultimate domination. Psychological warfare, physical warfare. I mean, this is not, the American government is not a game. And so before, I'm pretty sure Mexico probably had things that they wanted to do, but because the American school structure, the American system, the American school system, because they taught Spanish to the people, the American people, without the American people even knowing. See, the American government is the puppeteer. See, without the American people even knowing, the American people don't even know that they're informants for the American government by just knowing how to comprehend Spanish. Because the American people know how to comprehend Spanish, they can diffuse, they can soften what Mexicans want to do. Americans can have this camaraderie with Mexican people because they speak Spanish. It's not a camaraderie. That's not a camaraderie when the oppressor is holding down the oppressed. That's not a camaraderie. That's not what they're doing there. That's not what they're doing there. They're comprehending what Mexicans are doing so they can do it 2 steps before them. See, America knows that they have to be 2-3 steps ahead of Mexico. Or at least they have to try, because like I said, white America, white power structure, they're a dying breed. They're a living, dying breed. They're only decreasing. White people are only decreasing. Mexicans, African, people of color, we increase in population because we are actually people of this earth. White people are hybrids. They're a novelty. They're not old-fashioned traditional humans. They're a one-trick pony. So that's how I came up with the conclusion that the American school system teaches Spanish just to make the American people informants. They make the American people informants on Mexican people. The American people think that they're having camaraderie. They think that, no, you're an informant and you don't even know it. So, there's plenty of other things that they could teach. Computer engineering is a whole nother language. They took out all the Spanish and put in computer engineering. Not only would that give Mexican people their privacy, but that would take this world to a farther place. There's so much engineering, computation engineering that needs to be done that can uplift the American people. But they don't do. American government doesn't do that. They want to invade a whole nother country, and they want to also keep whatever Americans oppressed to. Because I know computer engineering that's the way of the world. That's the new industrial age. It's the computation age. It's important for us to know our history and to connect the dots of history and to see why things are. It's very important. So again, like I said, the American government, the American school system puts Spanish class in the American schools so that the people of America can comprehend what Mexicans are doing. If you just go, if a white person just goes to a Mexican community, they can just understand, they can just they don't even have to they don't have to talk to Mexicans. They can just comprehend them and know what they're doing, know what they're saying. They can eavesdrop. They can eavesdrop on Mexican conversations. That's probably why China is so respected here. Have you noticed that's probably why Asians are so respected here? And that's probably why there's so many undercovers in Chinatown. I don't know where you're from, but in Seattle, in the Chinatown in Seattle, there's always undercovers. There's always undercover in Chinatown. Always. That's because we don't know what we don't have that We don't have that comprehension like we do with the Mexicans, because they don't teach Chinese. We're not close to China. We don't have these big wars. Like we don't have, like we have against Mexico and African people. Like America still respects China as a threat. Like they respect them as a threat. There's no little Mexicos, there's no little Africas, there's no little native lands. But there are Chinatowns in America because why? Why is there a Chinatown in America? So that the American people can see how Chinese and Asian people, they can see how they live, they can see how they interact with each other. They're just watching them. The American government is diabolical. I'll get to Chinatown on my next one. But I just want you guys to understand why there are things going on, why things are. The American government is diabolical. And if anybody took a government class, that you know that the interest of the American government is the best interest of the American government, not the people. Not the people at all. If you took a government class, you know that a government is there only for the best interest for the government. What the hell is a government? A government's not a person, it's a system. So you got to understand these things. You got to see the world and just ask why does that make there are better things. So I know I said it 100 times, but I'm gonna say it again. The reason that the American school system and that the American government teaches Spanish in the schools is to be informants on the Mexican people. The American school system teaches Spanish so that the American people can comprehend what Mexicans are doing and to always be 2 steps ahead of them. As long as America can always be 2-3 steps ahead of Mexico, Mexico will never get farther than America. And that's what that's what America wants. They always want to be 2 steps ahead of the people that they're oppressing. That's why there will always be informants in black gangs and Mexican gangs, and there will always be informants to stay ahead. To stay ahead. Once they got you down, stay ahead. So, I thank you for listening. Please drop a comment. Please like and subscribe. And that's crazy. I remember I had a conversation with somebody about that, and I was thinking about that, and I was like, why do we learn Spanish? Why don't we learn computer engineering? That's a whole. If you know, coding is a whole nother language. That's an important language that we should learn. Not spying and being police to our neighbors. But that's the American government. Their military tactics. They use military tactics to run this country. The American government uses military tactics to run this government. They always look at other people as enemies. So, yeah, now I'll get to a Chinatown one too, because the Chinatown is in the exact same reason why we learn Spanish, just to be informed, to know, just to know what's going on, know the ecology of how a different nation runs. That's all. So, thank you.